All right, let's start with the big story that we're tracking on Wion at this hour, where the police are in fact giving a press conference in Christchurch in New Zealand. Let's listen in to what's being said.
It's quite possible I won't be able to help you out with any more detail, and I do have to return to work to brief others.
Commissioner, is there any other information that you can give us on the shooters at this point? No,
not at this stage. 4 are in custody, 3 are men, and 1 are woman. 1 is a woman, as I understand it. It's moving quite quickly, so I need to frame that in that way, that that's what we believe at this moment.
Do we know anything about motivation at this point?
Not conclusively. We're working our way through that as well.
Can you classify it as a terrorist attack?
We are still looking at the circumstances that surround that. It doesn't get any more serious in this country.
Are you aware there's a video on social media circulating about the attack?
I'm absolutely aware. I have seen social media footage. It's very disturbing. It shouldn't be in the public domain, and we're doing everything we can to remove it.
How did you apprehend the attackers?
The attackers were apprehended by local police staff. There's been some absolute acts of bravery. I'm hugely proud of our police staff, the way they responded to this. But let's not presume that the danger is gone. So we want to make sure that we're right across that community. We're as visible and equipped as we need to be to make that happen.
There were reports of a car bomb. Can you tell us more about that?
I can tell you that there were a number of IEDs attached to vehicles that we also stopped. They've been made safe by the Defence Force, but that does go to the seriousness of this situation.
Is it right that that person or attacker was arrested wearing wired explosives?
That person has been made safe. We're still working through that, but we believe there was a claim, but that person is absolutely safe.
An indication that there might be up to 9 suspects. Can you confirm that?
No, I can't confirm that. I can confirm that our staff have arrested 4 people. I won't assume there aren't others, but I don't have information to that effect.
The people who have been apprehended, were they known to police?
I can't go into that detail either. That detail will unfold in the next few days. That's all I can say at this stage, but I'm absolutely conscious that the public need to be informed, kept informed of this. We have, to my left, a host of communication staff who will make that happen, but as you can imagine, we have so many operational staff that are absolutely committed to this operation.
A source says police are going to be armed, have been instructed to be armed for the next wee while. What can you say about that?
Of course, our staff will have access, immediate access to the equipment they need to keep themselves and the community safe.
Are officers outside Christchurch being armed as well?
Yes, we're not assuming that this is contained to Christchurch. We have no other information to suggest it is. But at this point in time, we should never make assumptions.
Sorry, it's time to wrap now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Police Commissioner.
All right, so that was the Commissioner of New Zealand Police, Mike Bush, who has now said that 4 people have in fact been taken into custody. This is still an unfolding situation, and he said that this is as bad as it can get, although he did stop short of calling it a terror attack. At this point of time, what he has confirmed is that 3 men and 1 individual, who he says could be a woman, has now been apprehended, but the city of Christchurch still continues to be on a lockdown. We'll be tracking the developments, but meanwhile there are some other breaking updates that have just come in, where the 3rd test match that was to take place between New Zealand and Bangladesh has now been called off after the deadly shooting in Christchurch. The match was to be held on Saturday, and the official handle of the New Zealand cricket has now confirmed this on Twitter. The team has also expressed its condolences to the families of those affected. The tweet reads, and I quote here, "Our heartfelt condolences go out to the families and friends of those affected by the shocking situation in Christchurch. A joint decision between the NZC and the Bangladesh Cricketing Tigers has been made to cancel the Hagley Oval Test. Again, both teams and support staff groups are safe." End quote. In fact, the Bangladesh cricket team was at the mosque, at the Al Noor Mosque, for the Friday prayers at the time of the shooting occurred. The team has reportedly managed to escape unhurt from the mosque. And also a reporter who was with the team at the time that the shooting took place as the team walked out of the mosque safe has shared the video of the players outside of the mosque. And cricketer Tamim Iqbal has also tweeted about the team's experience. He said that it was a frightening experience, and this is what he's put out. Entire team got saved from the active shooters. Frightening experience, and please keep us in your prayers. And also your channel Wion has spoken to the director of Bangladesh Cricket Board, Mehbubul Anam. He said, and I quote, "They are safe, they are at the hotel and we are monitoring the situation. We have no further comments to make. Our CEO is in touch with the New Zealand authorities. We're just monitoring the situation. At this stage, we want to keep it till we get full unfolded information. We know that the team is safe and we are monitoring the situation, and our only spokesperson will be our CEO." So this is what Mehbubul Anam, the director of the Bangladesh Cricket Board, has to say. And also for more on this, we're joined in by our sports editor, Digvijay Singh Dio, who's joining us live. Good morning to you, Digvijay. This is, of course, a shocking attack that has been reported in Christchurch in New Zealand. And the aftermath of this, the test match that was to take place between Bangladesh and New Zealand has now been called off.
Yes, Saleh, I think it's a right call, and it's a call which has been made completely between the two boards, and I think it's something which didn't have to fester. The last kind of situation like this in cricket was the attack on the Sri Lankan cricket team in 2009 in Lahore, and there was a lot of waiting after that. Will the series go on? What's going to go on? Nothing of that sort has happened. There's been an incident. The players thankfully escaped unhurt. You mentioned the Bangladesh Cricket Board spokesperson saying that the players are safe. And I think the important bit is that both boards have come to an agreement that the Bangladesh cricketers will not be in a state of mind. What we are hearing from fellow reporters over in Bangladesh is that they were on their way to the mosque. In fact, the bus was pulling into the mosque when the shots were fired. The police stopped them from getting off the bus. After about 10 minutes, the players decided that, the stadium's not too far away. So they decided to walk through the park. Those visuals you mentioned and showed as well. So they weren't panicking. But the fact remains that such kind of situation scars players, and you can't play cricket at a time like this.
Absolutely, indeed. That is very true indeed, Digvijay Singh Dio. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and getting us the latest in terms of what has happened between the two nations, where the cricket test match that was to take place has now been called off. So this is still an unfolding situation that is still developing. We just heard from the police commissioner, Mike Bush, there, who said that 4 people have now been apprehended, but still the situation has not been completely resolved. The police are monitoring this and are ensuring that no further untoward things in fact happen. And also, I'm told we are joined by Mr. Tim Watkins, who is an executive producer from RNZ Radio, who's joining us live from New Zealand. Good evening to you, Tim. This is a shocking incident that's been reported from Christchurch. At this point of time, there is no official confirmation of the number of casualties, but what is known so far is that about 4 individuals have now been taken into custody by the police there in New Zealand.
That's right, and you heard that as recently as we did with Mike Bush there in his press statement. We're talking about 3 men and 1 woman who have been taken into custody. That has obviously happened just in the last minutes. A half an hour ago, we were still talking about 1 person in custody. Police are saying this is still a live and active situation. They don't know for sure how many people are involved in total. They are still actively searching people, and all police resources in Christchurch have been mobilised. And indeed, there are armed police on the streets of most of New Zealand major cities. The mosques around the countries have been closed. Police have asked all mosques in New Zealand to shut their doors and for people to stay away. And there are still schools. The hospital in Christchurch and council buildings are still in lockdown at the moment, while this is still a live situation with police very active on the streets of Christchurch now.
Absolutely, indeed. And we also heard the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, speak a little while back, where she described this incident as one of the darkest days in the history of New Zealand. Now, New Zealand is not known to see these kind of mass shootings. The last time there was a mass shooting of this nature goes back, in fact, to the year 1990. So tell us a bit about, what the gun control laws are like, and how unusual is it for a crime of this nature and on a scale like this to happen in New Zealand?
It is very unusual. You're right, in terms of mass shootings, they are few and far between. We go back to Aramoana. Terrorist attacks, if this is indeed a terrorist attack, we can go back to the Rainbow Warrior bombing, some people might remember, where a single individual was killed. We're talking at this time 30 people estimated killed or injured. So this is completely out of context for New Zealand. The Mayor of Christchurch has said simply that this does not happen here. So there is shock, frankly, across New Zealand that we would be part of this. We are a small and remote country, as you can say. We are not a place which has usually been caught up in these kind of battles, but we've seen today that 2 mosques attacked by people, and as you've said, 4 people now in custody, and it's a matter of a very quickly unfolding, rapidly changing situation to understand what this is behind this. But if you look at the online postings by the individual who seems to have been behind this, the online postings suggest an element of white supremacy, an anti-immigration stance that has been taken.
Absolutely, indeed. And this was something that was also mentioned by the Prime Minister, where she said most of the victims are likely to be immigrants, perhaps even refugees. Give us a sense of, what the mood is like in New Zealand so far as the issue of immigrants is concerned, because across the United States and in Europe we've seen there's a lot of tension between the people who call themselves the sons of the soil and the immigrants. But what is the situation like in New Zealand, and is there a problem of immigrants in New Zealand which perhaps could have resulted in this deadly mass shooting?
Compared to what you see across Europe and in America, you would say that the mood here has been mild. It is a political issue. New Zealand has had rapid immigration in the past 10 years. We've been running around 2% immigration rate, which is twice the international average. So there is a rapid immigration growth in New Zealand. A lot of people from your part of the world, a lot of people from all over the world. New Zealand has practiced pretty open borders, and as a small country of only about 4.5 million people, has been growing rapidly. Most of the debate and argument is around pressure on housing and infrastructure. It's not about cultural clashes. The idea about religious intolerance is very much a small part of the discussion. And so for this kind of hate crime, Helen Clark, a former New Zealand Prime Minister, and you might know former head of the UN Development Programme, has called this a heinous hate crime. These kind of words are not words that we're used to using in New Zealand. We are a quiet and removed country. This is a crime out of all proportion from what we've seen before here.
Absolutely indeed, and that is how it was described by the police commissioner as well, saying that this is an unprecedented situation that is still presently active and unfolding. And also, Tim, if you could give us a sense of, what this locality would have been like. We're given to understand that this is an attack that took place at the Al Noor Mosque in the heart of Christchurch. Give us a sense of what this area would have been like, because this happened during the Friday afternoon prayers, and one would expect that the mosque would have been completely brimming with people who were there to offer their prayers. But give us a sense of what the surrounding area of the mosque would have been like.
This is central Christchurch, two parts of central Christchurch. The first mosque that seems to have been attacked was near Hagley Park. You were talking about the cricket earlier. Your listeners who know about cricket in New Zealand would have seen test matches at Hagley Park in Christchurch. It is a big green area right in the middle of the city. Christchurch is a very conservative, very quiet town. It was obviously struck, you might remember, in 2011 by earthquakes that in 2010 and 2011. But earthquakes that killed hundreds of people. It is a city that has been going through a lot of trauma in recent years. And to be honest, in the past few years, there's been a sense that Christchurch has been getting back on its feet. This will be shocking. This will be devastating to the people of Christchurch. They are a quiet, settled town at the bottom of the world. To have this kind of violence perpetrated amongst the greenery in the central city, right at the heart of the city, is simply shocking. And as you mentioned, Mike Bush, the police commissioner, he also said in his press conference that there were, I think you heard there, IEDs attached to vehicles. So it looks like there has been a level of planning that has gone into this.
Indeed. Tim Watkins, do continue to stay on with this, because I'm told that we're also joined by Jane Patterson, who is a political editor at Radio New Zealand, who's joining us live from Wellington. Jane, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this broadcast on Wion. And let me begin by asking you this. Now, what is in fact unfolding in Christchurch, which is still an active situation, has been described as unprecedented and perhaps one of the darkest days in the history of New Zealand. Give us a sense of, this has also been described as a hate crime. So give us a sense of, what the mood is like in New Zealand at this point of time.
Everyone in New Zealand is reeling from the events that have unfolded in Christchurch this afternoon. As you've just heard from Tim, the police are updating media and the public regularly about the number of fatalities, the advice for people in Christchurch, but not only in Christchurch, but around the country. People are being asked to stay away from mosques. The police and authorities are still very concerned that there might be other activity out there, so they're asking people to really be on alert. Now, I'm here in Wellington at the Parliament in the capital city. Our Prime Minister was further up the island in New Plymouth when she had her scheduled events this afternoon. When all of this broke out, she cancelled her events and is on her way back to the Beehive, the seat of Parliament here in New Zealand, where she's about to get a top-level briefing from the chief executives of all of the government departments across the whole of the government, including health, education, security, intelligence, police and defence, to see what is going on and what the government response is going to be.
Absolutely indeed. And Jane, one of the aspects that has shocked a lot of people are these reports of a video that also reportedly broadcast live the attack that took place. Now, what is in fact being done in terms of ensuring that this video is not spread much on social media?
There's been a storm on social media about this video and also about a manifesto that the gunman put up on social media. There's been a massive debate here already just about whether that video should be shown, whether the details of that manifesto should be talked about. There's a very strong sense among the media here, RNZ in particular has said that we will not be sharing those details, and other media outlets are following suit. So apparently very distressing images being shared on social media, but warnings that it is actually a crime. It could be a crime to be sharing that material, and journalists really being asked to be responsible and not share and publish this material.
Absolutely indeed, Jane. Do continue to stay on with this. Meanwhile, Tim Watkins is still with us. Tim, if I can come to you on this. There were reports of an IEDs that were attached to the car, and this was eventually confirmed by the police commissioner there, because earlier it was said to be an unconfirmed report. Now, this attack looks to be a very premeditated, a very well-planned attack. The police has, of course, taken 4 individuals into custody and also a car that had IEDs attached to it. That has now been taken into custody by the police as well, and they've said that they've made the scene safe. My question to you, of course, is the police have now still stopped short of calling this a terror attack and have only described it as a hate crime so far.
That's right, and to be honest, that's about as much as anybody knows that you've laid out. Mike Bush, in the press conference that he was giving just as we were coming to air, confirmed, as you say, that there were a number of IEDs attached to vehicles that have been stopped. They have been made safe by the Defence Force, and he said that goes to show the seriousness of the situation. What we see from the alleged attackers from his online presence suggests that there has been a lot of preparation involved in this, and certainly the presence of IEDs suggests that this is not a spontaneous attack, that this is something that has been planned by at least a small group of people. Analysts that we've been talking to on RNZ have been saying to speculate what those people are, but it does seem to be from the white supremacist side of the spectrum.
Absolutely indeed. And also, Tim, 4 individuals have been taken into custody, but from the eyewitness accounts, some of the people have said that there was one individual who burst into the main hall for the prayers in the mosque and who started shooting indiscriminately. So was there one shooter and other people have been taken into custody as accomplices? What more information do we have at this point of time?
Really no more information than that. As Jane was alluding to, there is video of a single shooter entering the mosque, but as she says, that's not being shared. It is a horrendous piece of video which is being kept off, and as Mike Bush, the police commissioner, said there, it could be a crime to share it. So that is being kept down. So yes, as far as we know at the moment, there was a single shooter there. But as we say, there were 2 locations, as you have said, 2
Absolutely.
mosques that were attacked, and 4 individuals in custody at the moment. 30 people potentially killed or injured.
Absolutely. And Jane, if I can bring you in on this, the fact of the matter is there are reports, the police have of course not spoken about the identity of the shooter and also the 4 people who have been taken into custody. But there are reports that these individuals could be people who perhaps subscribe to the white supremacist ideology. What more information do we have on this?
Look, a lot of that information is actually coming through social media. It's not necessarily coming through those official channels. A huge amount, as I said, on the likes of Twitter about exactly...
Right. Right, I think there's an issue with Jane Patterson's line. Yes, go ahead, Jane. Go ahead.
Through official sources, so really very too early to speculate on the identities or indeed the motivations or connections of any of these groups, and it's still very, very much a moving event.
Absolutely, indeed. It is still an unfolding event. One of the questions that was asked to Mike Bush in the press conference was, did the police actually have these individuals that they have apprehended under their radar? For which the police commissioner there said that it was still too early to say anything on that front. But would this be seen as a bit of an intelligence failure, considering the fact that there is a lot of planning that these attackers have gone into? They've been able to assemble these IEDs, attach them to a car, and the police, of course, were able to neutralize that before they could be set off. So is this being looked at as also a possible intelligence failure as well?
Exactly the kind of questions that the Prime Minister will be asking. We've just had news she has landed in Wellington and is on her way to the Beehive. We did have a security expert talking to RNZ, Paul Buchanan, who said that there had been a lot of focus on Muslim terrorist activity in New Zealand and maybe not so much on white supremacy or the risk from the other side. But again, it's so early to talk about any of these details, really.
Absolutely.
And the Prime Minister is going to be briefing the media again in a couple of hours, and they will definitely be among the questions that she will be asked as this horrific event unfolds in Christchurch.
Absolutely. Do continue to stay on with us, Jane. Let me bring in Tim Watkins, who's still online with us. Tim, the fact of the matter is, it was a very targeted attack where 2 mosques were, in fact, the prime targets in this case. It's the Muslim community that has been targeted. Has this come at all as a surprise in New Zealand?
Oh, a huge surprise. As we were saying earlier, this is not the kind of thing that New Zealand has been familiar with at all. We have... While immigration is certainly a political issue here, it is more, as I said, at the end of infrastructure and housing. It is not a debate about religion or about culture, and certainly violence like this has not been seen in New Zealand before. This is at a level that is unprecedented for New Zealand, but it shows, I guess, something about how far these tensions are spreading when a country is removed from the capitals of the world, if you like, is being struck in this way. It's obviously hugely concerning. And I think the Prime Minister reflected that in some of her comments when she said that these are people who have come to New Zealand and deserve to be safe here. They are people who have chosen New Zealand, and she said they are us. The shooter is not us.
Absolutely, indeed. And one other question that I'll be compelled to ask you, Tim, is that it was being reported at this point of time that it was an automatic rifle that was in fact used to carry out this attack. So the question obviously that I want to ask you is about the gun laws. On Twitter, there are many people who are saying that, look, when I buy a car, I need to register that. When I get a pet, I need to register that. But when I have a gun, the law is still pretty ambiguous. So how controlled or how regulated is this gun licensing in New Zealand?
It has been a long-term issue in New Zealand. It's been debated for years. The current situation in New Zealand is that gun owners are registered, but the weapons themselves are not. There have certainly been calls for more than a decade from gun violence advocates saying that there should be registration around the weapons themselves. there have been estimates of up to a million unregistered weapons, of illegal weapons, I should say, circulating in New Zealand. And there were the reports just on RNZ just last week in terms of new details about the number of illegal weapons in New Zealand.
Right.
Having said that, we do not have a history of significant use. We go back to around 1990 when there was the last mass shooting, and they are few and far between, I've got to say. And so this has certainly been a live political debate for many years, and it is sure to be one again after today.
Absolutely, indeed, Tim. I'm told that you will have to leave. Thank you very much indeed, Tim Watkin, for joining us in this broadcast with Wion. But Jane Patterson still continues to stay on with us. Jane, I'll just come to you in just a bit, but first let us play out some of these horrific eyewitness accounts that have been told by people who were inside of the mosque at the time that this horrific incident took place earlier today in Christchurch.
I was inside the mosque. I was in the side room. And the Imam had started the sermon, so everybody was settled, and it was very peaceful, calm and quiet, as usually it is. When Imam starts talking, everyone is quiet and it is a pin drop silence. But then suddenly, the shooting started. So it started in the main room, because the shooter must have come through the hallway, and I was in the side room, so I did not see who was shooting, but I saw that some people were running out through my room where I was in, and also I saw some people had blood on their body, and some people were limping. At that moment, I realized that it was really serious, and a couple of people, they said to me that